Hey everybody, welcome. I'm here with Vedant and we are excited to do an interview with him. He actually just got two 760s, said multiple times. He's been a part of the Target Test Prep course. I'm Jeff Miller and I'm the CEO or COO, sorry, of Target Test Prep. I've done another YouTube live session previously, but I'm super pumped to be able to do this interview. And you guys can learn about a lot about Vedant's journey, and you can also learn about Target Test Prep, and hopefully a lot of what you hear today relates to where you're at, and of course where you're trying to go. So I'm going to start off, and Vedant, why don't you just for the sake of everyone understanding where you came from and all of that stuff, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's really good to be here. So, my name is Vedant. First will give my professional background. I've been an investment banker for 5 years. I've worked in with companies in various sectors from healthcare to infra. Recently, I've started working at a hedge fund as a portfolio manager. We are mostly focused on US equities. For my education, I have a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Warwick University in the UK, and I've done my CFA, all three levels. So that's about me.
Awesome. Awesome. So that's very impressive. And I guess that's going to lead me to my next question here. You certainly have an awesome background. So tell us, where you're headed as far as an MBA is concerned. What are your plans for an MBA, now that your GMAT is complete?
So I am currently in the midst of the applications. I finished my GMAT 1 month ago. Then after that, I took a short break for like a couple weeks. So I've just started working on my essay. So I'm planning to apply mostly to the US and some European schools. So round one, I'm aiming to hit 3, 4 schools, but I haven't really decided on names. I'm using
Got
Applicant Lab for my essays, which I can also recommend.
Okay, great. Well, you got your GMAT done pretty efficiently. So yeah, round
Mhm.
one, you seem to be in a great spot for that. So, and I know you're going to get into this in detail. I realize that you were pretty lucky in your GMAT prep in the fact that you found us, meaning Target Test Prep, at the beginning of the process, and obviously
Yes.
you had a lot of success with two 760s. But and we'll get into the retakes and stuff like that. But why don't you start out by just telling everybody a little bit about how you got started with your GMAT prep, and then we can talk a little bit more about Target Test Prep in general. But how did that get started?
Sure. So I started thinking of giving my GMAT after 31st December. On 1st Jan, actually decided to start giving the GMAT. So for the next week or so, I just started researching around it. Looked up various courses, checked their reviews, checked what people are talking about on GMAT Club and miscellaneous background research. That's how I came across Target Test Prep. And they offer 1 week free trial, which I felt was a no-brainer. This was the best reviewed course, and I felt I should try it out before doing anything else. And I loved the 1 week trial and then immediately jumped into TTP, which did make GMAT a lot easier because typically it's a very daunting thing. Like there's so many courses, so many topics, just so many details. Just to, like kind of know what to do exactly, TTP makes that simple and easy.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. The 5-day trial that we offer is something that we really love. At one point in time, we toyed with having a limited trial, and there's just no better way to experience the course than sit down with it 5 days. It's full access, so you're really seeing it as you would as a GMAT student, and I'm sure, that's what kind of sold you on the course. Um, Now, the cool thing is you basically more or less used all of Target Test Prep. So why don't you tell everybody about your experience with the course and how you used it, how you used it for your GMAT prep?
So TTP was the base and core of my entire GMAT preparation. So I started studying for GMAT properly from say around 15 January. So over the next 3 months, I more or less did only TTP. And I would say, so 3 months, I probably finished 85% or so of the entire course. I did the entire verbal module. With quant, I skipped some of the easy exams with the interest of time. And if you, I can go into more details on the course as well if you want right now.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Now, I assume you followed the study plan, is that correct?
Yes, I followed the study plan. I
Okay.
jumped around a little bit, but I more or less followed it in order. So the study plan is so I'll so the course TTP is designed as multiple modules in an order with quant and verbal mixed. So you're actually studying everything like it's building up on what you learned before, and you're reinforcing everything you've learned. So like there's the entire science of repetitive learning, repetition, spaced learning,
Mhm.
so it's integrates all that. So you don't really have to worry about being efficient while you're studying or with like admin stuff like, maintaining an error log, looking at your
Mhm.
metrics, stuff like that. All that is taken care of. So your entire bandwidth can be spent on just learning, which is great.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that it sounds like you fully took advantage of is yes, the
Mhm.
error log that you can add questions to. And then, of course, one of the things we've done over time is we've built in a lot of review sections in the study plan. Like we have review quizzes at the beginning of every module, and then those module review quizzes, which are like 4 or 5 modules that are missions at a time, and then the global review test. So yeah, it's all built in so that right when you think you're starting to forget stuff, we hit you with it, and you're like, oh yeah, here's a weakness that I need to fill in, and stuff like that. So that's awesome, man. That's really, really awesome. Now, what are some like highlights in your opinion? I mean, you use this course for a number of months, like, and again, I know you only use target test prep, but what are some highlights that you feel you want to share with people about the course?
So firstly, I would say what immediately stood out to me was just how well the interface is organized. But TTP is a very pretty platform in terms of like the way the tests are done, the way each module is organized. So when you start a new topic, you first go through the lessons, which is one PDF with many examples with video answers. So you're going in depth into the topic and more or less covering everything while having like summary notes at the bottom which summarizes the sheet. So once you finish one topic, you have multiple topic tests on that with multiple difficulties. So you basically once you perfect a topic, you move on to the next one, which will likely be building up on the previous one. Because for example, you start off the earliest topic is property of numbers, I believe. And property of numbers in GMAT comes in every topic. Like no matter what topic you're doing,
Yes,
property of
it's a
numbers is
monster.
there.
It's a monster.
Yeah.
Yes. That
So that was
that's
actually, I think, the most difficult topic of them all. Like it took me the longest time because I also new to studying for GMAT with data sufficiency and wrapping your head around the way to think about them.
yeah.
But yeah, TTP did a really good job of getting me used to thinking like a GMAT examiner.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have these conversations a decent amount where, someone gets to number properties and initially they get a little I guess a little skittish and they're like, wow, this is a lot. But it's almost like it's a very, very important topic. Yes, it's huge because it is. I mean, you're ranging things from divisibility to unit digit patterns to remainders, and really a lot of stuff that um, you are not doing in your high school or even college math classes. So that's another part of it. Um, so yeah, but once you get over that number properties mountain, let's say, did you feel like, oh wow, like now I'm really cruising downhill? Like, did that kind of give you a nice wind in your sails as you were moving forward through the study plan?
Oh, definitely. I think I took 2 weeks on property of numbers. And
Yeah,
then
it's not bad.
I later, I think I was doing like one topic a day at one point. Some of
Hmm.
the later topics you can just knock through fairly easily. Like I personally find combinations and probability relatively simple. A lot of people get stuck on it, and property
Right.
of num and sorry, and word problems as well. So I didn't get stuck on those topics. But property of numbers, I think, is the base of your entire quant. experience. Because it's ultimately like once you finish property of numbers in TTP, you're also perfecting your data sufficiency strategies and everything.
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like you had no issues going at your own pace, right? Like that's always a big question, how many modules a day should I do? How long is this going to take? But it sounds like you dug in and you said I'm going to get through this at the pace that I need to master the material, which, obviously it paid off. You got a 760. So, would you kind of say that was the mindset you had as you went through the course?
I actually initially I planned to finish it off earlier, but midway I realized there's no point in rushing through it if you have time. If you start, if you have enough time for exam, it's better if you go through it at your own pace, as you said, so that you're actually, like learning and remembering stuff rather than just trying to finish it for the sake of finishing and then not remembering much later. So then you have to again revise later, which is much more inefficient. So like I
Yeah.
maintained notes throughout. I had an error log, so I did the
Hmm.
good stuff that way. Noted down the key learning. So my error log's actually fairly simple. I just have a Word document where I would copy paste text, pictures, or questions I got stuck on, just so that I can look at it later, just to
Right.
brush your memory that way.
Yeah, that's such a key thing you said is that you didn't rush through it to get through it. I have so many people I talk to where they're like, well, I need 250-point increase in 3 weeks. So like, how do I get through the course? And it's like, well, it's not a course issue that you're dealing with. It's like a GMAT issue, right? Like there's no magic course, there's no magic pill that gets you the 250 points in 3 weeks. So you have to kind of reallocate your mindset and say, well, maybe I just need to do this right. When you do it right, you're putting yourself in a position to succeed the first time, and if not, very soon after the second time. But doing it the wrong way just means you have to circle back and then almost start from scratch, which is not fun for anybody. So that's awesome to hear.
That's actually
Now,
one good point you made that TTP does focus a lot on how you should be approaching problems, like in terms of like, gimmicks to avoid, not to take any shortcuts, actually drilling down on the concept areas rather than like skimming through chapters, etc. Which is really important because if you look at the forums and across the place, you see a lot of shortcuts offered which don't really work.
yeah, you were mentioning that when we were speaking that we do teach, I guess you could say, quote unquote, shortcuts, but we're not teaching. We're kind of teaching you to outsmart the GMAT, and we're teaching you the efficient ways to get through questions without making it gimmicky. And that was something really cool that you had mentioned. So that was great to hear. Now, you obviously did 100% of our verbal course, and target test prep for years has been quant. So we recently finished 2/3 of verbal. Sentence correction is fully done. um, Critical reasoning is fully done. You did both of those, and obviously you got an amazing verbal score. And reading comp is coming online hopefully in August. So why don't you tell everybody about target test prep verbal and how you used it and your thoughts on that, so they can learn a bit about it.
Sure. So Verbal was actually launched after I joined the course. So I think 1 month up into when I was studying for quant, that's when the pre-launch beta was released. So initially I was a bit, scared, "Okay, this is beta, this might not work," to try it out, but it was amazing. I honestly don't know why it's classified as beta. It covers everything you really need to know on sentence correction and CR. So I did not really, after I finished the CR course and the sentence correction course, I did not struggle with OG at all. Maybe on some of the very high level questions, you still need to like, be perfect on. But overall, I think you can get a V45 plus score just based on TTP.
That's so cool.
With
Yeah.
with critical reasoning specifically, you'll find OG easy after. And even though
Yeah.
the RC is released, it's basically a built up on your CR skills.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, man. We hear that a lot where people use our verbal and then they go and do OG questions, and they're literally shocked how simple um, how simple those questions are after completing our stuff. And obviously it's because of how we're teaching and what we're teaching. But yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. Like, the thing that's exciting us so much is that there's more and more students like yourself who, you're not just crushing quant, you're crushing verbal. And like, that was the whole point. It took us a long time to make this verbal course. We're super proud of it. It makes us so excited when someone like yourself, sees us on both sides of the exam and can be successful. Now, I'm sure the burning question for a lot of people, so you got two 760s. Now, obviously that was never the plan. You didn't take your second test thinking, well, gee, I want to get the same exact score. So why don't you tell everyone about that? I'm sure people are wondering, okay, you got a 760. Why not just hang up the gloves and move on? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so I'll give you some background first. So initially, I planned to take the GMAT on first of May, but then the enhanced launch was happening, which kept getting delayed. So then I ended up getting a slot on 25th of May. So there was a 24-day delay, which I used to practice a lot, etc. But that's when I gave my first enhanced online attempt, in which I scored the 760. But centers were opening from 1st July. So when I got my 760 on my online GMAT, there were some multiple issues I faced. Like firstly, my laptop died during the verbal section,
Oh,
so my exam didn't get cancelled or anything. I put on the charger and it was fine after that, but I still lost 1.5 minutes of my last five. So I ended up guessing on a question on verbal, which could have pushed me to 770. Then on the quant side, I feel the paper was extremely difficult, and I got top questions from topics I didn't weren't my favorite topics, like coordinate geometry. I had like 6 or 7 coordinate geometry questions, which is unreal. So then I had that in my mind that I could potentially have got a 780, and I felt that I'll never be as prepared later as I am right now. I'll never be doing the GMAT again, so I
right.
might as well work a few days extra and go to the center and give one more attempt and see how what happens. Because no harm, no foul. If I mess up, I cancel.
Yeah. People ask that a lot in the forums and stuff. And my first question is like, okay, where were your practice exam scores? And if they're like, yeah, I was scoring 770, 770, 780, it's like, well, I mean, if you don't mind paying the 299 to
Yeah.
take the test, then um, go for it. I mean, yeah, 780 would be great. I mean, 760 is amazing, but if you have a 780, awesome. Um, so that's
All
pretty
my mock
cool,
scores were all my mock scores were around 770, 780. My
right?
average was 770. I had one 760, I think, and two 780s and two 770s, or something like that.
That's
So
great.
that was also there in the back of my head.
That's great. That's great. Um, awesome. Now, what um, what kind of advice do you have for people studying for the GMAT in general, based on your experience?
So regardless of what provider you're using, I recommend TTP strongly. But if you're using something else as well, make sure you keep a good error log. I think that's key to just kind of like summarize what you're learning so that you can revise it later and refresh your mind and practice a lot. So if you're giving an online exam, try to practice in the exact same way you'll be giving the actual exam. So use a whiteboard, use a marker, use give it in the same place you'll be giving the exam. Study off a screen rather than off a book. So you're just used to the way everything works. And if you practice a lot, you like do untimed practice, because later as you practice, you'll automatically get faster and you get really good at identifying trap answers, because GMAT loves throwing traps at you. You have to remember the exam is designed to trap you and make you make mistakes. So the
Yeah.
more you practice, the better you get at avoiding them.
Yeah, I agree. That's part of the way that we structured the course. Like, we're not just giving you 10 questions and rates to do, we're giving you 80. We're not just giving you 50 number properties, we're giving you 250. So you can see the different ways that these questions can be thrown at you. So when you're on the GMAT, if there's just a slight variation of what you've seen, you're ready for it. Now, in that same breath, you know, the way we created target test prep, you mentioned studying on the screen, which is great. It gets you in the realm of how things are going to be for the real GMAT. So, how did you enjoy the way that we deliver our teaching? Some courses are fully video based. Ours isn't. We have a lot of text, and then reading through the course materials as well as videos. So, how did you feel that worked for you as far as learning GMAT Quant and Verbal?
So I personally don't like learning off videos because I tend to zone out. So I prefer having, whether it's a book or PDF, I prefer having like the theory neatly and well organized in a PDF, which I can go through at my own pace, maybe rush through it, maybe do it slowly, and then keep practicing as I'm going through it. So I like the way TTP is set up that way. I mean,
Good.
honestly, the interface of TTP, like you guys should go if you haven't. If you have time, go do a trial. You'll get to see what I mean.
Yes. Do a trial. You will. And as we said, it's 5 days. You get full access. Yeah, it's worth checking out. We love being so involved with the GMAT club community. So the more GMAT club members who use the course, the better. So I mean, I think this has been pretty well covered. Unless there's anything else you want to share, we can do some Q&A. But again, congratulations on
Thank
two
you.
760s. Congratulations on now being a TTP alumnus. We're excited to have you. Is there anything else you want to share outside of what we spoke about?
No, I think we covered everything.
Okay, great. So we can get into some question answer. I know there's
Yeah.
been some comments here. Um, if I can go through them, unless they're going to be given to us, let me see if there are any questions. Okay, well, here is an interesting question. This question came in. Well, actually, that question already got answered about verbal and target test prep. You taking the GMAT twice. Well, here's a question for me, probably. What is mission review and global mission review? That's probably a question about it. That is a question about our study plan. Those are just review tests that are part of the study plan. So if you go to the end of the study plan, the global mission review is that's a review test, or I think we have multiple of those that cover every quant topic in the course. And then a mission review test is one that covers maybe four or five missions, meaning chapters in those tests. And we have a bunch of mission review tests throughout the study plan. As Vedant had said, those were huge on keeping up with review. If you missed that, he was talking about how simple everything is, and you don't have to think about what to study and when to study. It's all there in the study plan. Now here's a question for you, Vedant. Any last minute preparation tips the week before your test? Anything you would recommend doing the week before your test?
So, like I previously said, I used to have an error log, which was basically a Word doc. I think at the peak it was around 35 pages or so. So the last week, I practiced a bit and also went through my error log and kept removing stuff till I kind of knew everything on it. And on the day before the exam, I took it as a semi-off day. I saw a movie and didn't really study much. You want to be very fresh on the day of the exam. So, like, I mean, you don't want to be stressing or anything like that. So, take some time off on the day before. It sounds counterintuitive, but it works.
That's great
And when I
advice.
gave the offline exam, it was 3, 4 days later after I gave the online exam. So that time also, I didn't really study those 3, 4 days much. I again went through my error log and practiced a tiny bit, but nothing else besides that.
Yeah, that's really good advice. In fact, that's how I looked at my GMAT. Well, back in the day when I was dealing with it. How much time should I invest in IR and AWA? So I guess I can shed some light on that. I think that, and I don't know how Vedant structured his, and you can comment on that too, but that's probably the last thing you need to do. IR luckily contains components of quant and verbal. So if you're great at quant and verbal, the next step is get some official questions and just bang them out. Just do them and get used to the graphs and the tables, et cetera, and you should be fine. AWA, we actually have an AWA module in or mission in target test prep with some great advice on that. Again, I think as long as you get some practice in, you'll be fine, but probably do those on the tail end of your prep. So I
So
assume,
IR, I would say, so if you're giving all the mock exams, the 6 mock exams, that's enough practice, I feel, for IR. Like Jeff said, if you're decent at quant and verbal, IR won't be much of an issue for you. You have to just get used to being fast on it, which you'll
mhm.
automatically get if you're giving 6 mocks. So I would say you can ignore IR more or less unless it's a pain point for you. Then do some official questions on the side. AWA, I personally didn't end up doing anything. I read the module fairly last minute. Then there was some guide on GMAT Club also, which I read last minute, but I didn't do any practice or anything like that. And I ended up getting a 5 in both my attempts. So I was happy with it. Honestly, if you get a 4.5 also on AWA, it doesn't really matter from a college point of view. So I would say don't spend too much time on it.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now I assume the answer is after, but one of the questions is, did
After.
you take? Yeah. So if you're
Hmm.
wondering if you're in the course, we have the learning phase, we have the practice test phase. You finish the learning phase, that's all the missions with all of our chapters and all of our chapter tests and all of our review tests. And then the practice test phase, which consists of the 6 official mock exams. Now, here's an interesting question, and you may not know the answer. How many questions were you getting wrong in verbal on your practice exams? Do you have any recollection of that?
I do one to four, I believe.
Wow, you're crushing it. Wow.
So on my
Awesome.
V45 and the offline exam, I had 3 mistakes. That's how tight the marking is on the
It's
higher levels.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's amazing. Um, Question here. I've started using TTP, suggestions around following it. I can certainly lend a hand there. As Vedant had mentioned, he followed our study plan. Okay, he did skip some easy tests. It's not something we recommend, but look, we're not sitting next to you in a chair forcing you to do things. So, you know, do what you think you need to do, but our suggestion is always follow the study plan. So that would be the biggest piece of advice on top of just working hard. I always recommend at least 18 hours a week. I'm not sure, Vedant, what you put in. I mean, that's at a minimum. Were you around there or more?
Yeah, I think I was around 2 to 3 hours per day during my peak time when I was studying.
Yeah,
I did
it's about
have
eight.
on and off periods, but on average, I think I was around 2 hours per day by the end.
Right, so that's about 18 hours. Yep. Um, did you take a cold exam before starting target test prep?
No,
You didn't. Okay. So then
I
that
decided to save my mock for when I'm ready for it.
got it. Got it. Okay. So then yeah, then there's no answer to that question. I'm just trying to look at questions that you haven't responded or answered yet. How did you prepare for reading comp?
Just practice a lot. I mean, towards the end, I was
Like,
doing 1 or 2 RCs a day. What you
mm-hmm,
can do is once TTP does not have RC, but you have you have OG, you have OG verbal, you have OG
right.
advanced. All
Mm-hmm,
these three have a lot of RCs, and then once you're done with your mocks, you can also sort GMAT Club for GMAT prep questions, which is basically the mock questions you haven't attempted. So those are some really good RCs you can solve. And then if you run out of those, also you can do some LSAT ones. Again on GMAT Club, you can search by tag. But I would say
got it.
stick to official RCs.
Yep. Um, Now this is an interesting question. I can respond to it as well. What would be your advice for a beginner level student um, 2 months before the exam? Um, this kind of goes back to what I was saying and what you were saying is you need to really go at your own pace. So and figure out if 2 months is truly what you need. Now you did it, I think you said in about 3.5 months, which is amazing. I mean, some people need 6, 7 months even to get to that score. So I think it's kind of being realistic with yourself. Now, if you're using target test prep, saying, I'm going to follow the study plan, I'm going to work at my own pace, irrespective of whether or not I complete all this in 2 months, because it just means you need the work. And then if 2 months isn't enough, you stretch it out to 4, 6 months, whatever you need to do to get the score, unless you're saying, well, if I don't get the score, I'll go to a lower tiered school or something like that. But if your goal is for a top school, then yeah. Yeah, I would say give yourself as much time as you need. I don't know if you have any additional advice about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2 months, you could do it if you put in a lot of time, might be a bit difficult. If you could push it to, say, 3 months, that'd be ideal.
Right.
You
Mm-hmm.
want to keep some time aside for practicing towards the end. You might finish the course, but you also need time to remember and wrap everything up.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Well, we covered a lot of these questions. I guess, there's one more, unless we hit on this, how you optimize your learning through TTP. But again, I think you hit on that. I mean, it was simple. You followed the study plan and you did the things that we asked you to do, and you kind of trusted the process. And voila, you got your you got your 760. So so that's awesome. So I think
Just one more
um,
question we can answer. So Abhiyan
okay.
has asked, did you use pre-thinking while solving RCs? So I
Oh,
see pre-thinking thrown around a lot on the forums. I don't think it works. Because I mean, logically, if you have answer choices in front of you, what's the point wasting time thinking what the answer will be if you can anyway just go down and see the answers?
right.
And the other
Yeah.
thing with pre-thinking is GMAT knows people use this. So they will be designing answers to trap you,
Yes,
knowing people will be pre-thinking. So often the answer that seems right is wrong. And the
I
answer
know.
that seems out there is right. So you have to
Exactly.
actually think through exact wording of the answer, especially for difficult RCs, because there's just so
Right.
many trap answers.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, we actually, if you guys want to go back and look at our first YouTube live on verbal, we talked about why pre-thinking doesn't work, and it's no different with like quant. Like, why is a C trap a C trap? Well, because the obvious, and that's actually the next YouTube live that I did was about the C trap, which you can look at. But um, it's because it's obvious, and they know what's obvious. So if they're going to give you an obviously pre-thought answer, then yeah, you're going to be falling into a lot of traps. So yeah, that's a really great answer. Um, yeah, I mean, I think we got everything covered here. I don't see any other questions that you haven't kind of touched on. So this has been really fun. And again, like, you rocked it, 2 760s. I mean, that's super cool. Congrats on being done with your GMAT. Congrats on being able to wrap up target test prep. Um, and thanks everybody for coming and asking us great questions. We've really enjoyed this, and we're looking forward to doing some more of these YouTube live sessions in the future. So, any final thoughts, Vedant, or did we have this covered?
No, I think we covered everything. Best of luck, everyone. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
best
me here.
best of luck for your GMAT. Thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you guys soon.